And thank you everybody else for being here today. I'm really excited to be here to talk about the importance of play and the way that it's integrated into the curriculum through imaginative inquiry. I think I became a teacher in part because I loved so much playing with the preschoolers in my first job. Play has something that we lose the ability to do as we get older, and it is of immense value for children and adults. It has a very important role in the development of the young child. And pretend play in particular helps children to develop in the areas that are really most important to us as parents and educators. And Carrie mentioned I'm Montessori trained, so I will start right out by quoting Maria Montessori, that she reframed the way educators understand play when she said, play is the work of the child. And at first you might wonder, well, what does that mean? Like, you're making play sound like it's not fun, right? That it's serious work. And yes, it is serious work, but not in the way that it's no fun. What this means, David Elkind explains that this means that play is the motivation for child's work, right? They approach their work with the spirit of play. They are playing when they're working. The two are integrated. They explore the world around them in their play, and through this play, they create meaning and understanding. They learn and they build themselves. So we should treat play with the same respect with which we treat work. Now, pretend play is good for our children. We want our children to have confidence to tackle difficult problems, to find solutions, to navigate social situations. We want our children to have empathy and compassion for others and to develop a positive work ethic. Pretend play is foundational to all of these life skills. Pretend play builds the attention span. Children can get lost in their pretend play and spend hours or even days working on something of their own invention. That ability to focus in intensely will help them later in school and in work. In pretend play, children also have to cooperate and communicate with each other to make decisions or to move a story or a game forward. They have to listen to each other and compromise. They're developing social skills as they play, skills that they will need for the rest of their lives. There are profound social and emotional benefits to pretending. Children explore and process emotions when they pretend. They experience joy or sorrow in a safe and imaginary world. And they put themselves into the shoes of others, so they feel empathy and compassion. Another thing that's great for children in play is that they experience independence and power that they don't have in their daily lives. This is really important for them too. When they're pretending, they're making the decisions instead of taking direction from an adult. I can't say enough about the importance of pretend play, and I love that imaginative inquiry gives us an opportunity to bring all of that into the school day. Now, because I went to Teachers College too, of course I have to quote John Dewey. So John Dewey tells us the child's own instincts and powers furnish the material and give the starting point of all education. What that says to me is that we have to start with the children where they are. We start with their gifts, their passions, their interests. I love the picture on this slide, and because this is my first grade class when we discovered so many acorns and blue jays living right outside our classroom, and I'm going to tell you that story in a little bit. But if you can just feel a little bit of the energy in that picture, that's a group of children who are in the process of collecting over 1,000 acorns together as a group and then sorting them. Starting with their instincts and powers is where that education started, right? The education needs to start where children are, not where adults are. We're their guides, their facilitators to journey into the world, but we have to start with them in their imaginations, in their feelings, and in their interests in the world around them. And this way, they can develop the intellectual, academic, and social skills they need. And imaginative inquiry is an approach that lets us do just that. Imaginative inquiry was developed in the United Kingdom. It's an approach based on the idea that children's imagination is a powerful tool for learning. Within a community of inquiry, teachers and students create exciting and meaningful contexts for learning, using conventions of theater, such as point of view, tension, and narrative, to explore curricular objectives. Students are not merely passive observers of the stories of our world, but they are collectively invited to take action in the realm of possibility that imaginative inquiry provides. The organization that promotes imaginative inquiry in the United States trains teachers to create lessons based on social studies content. This organization is based in New York City. So many of their lessons are based in the history of that area. So it includes the Lenape and New Amsterdam settlement, immigration, city government. So I had the opportunity to do this training and was so inspired, but I wanted to create lessons that were connected to our part of New Jersey. So working with Carol Fontaine, we've launched here at Willow a curriculum that fits with our students and our environment. And imaginative inquiry is really project-based learning, but with the story added in. They have all the benefits of project-based learning. They engage in real world and meaningful projects. They collaborate. They're inspired by the project or the narrative, and that makes them want to work. And then it's integrated across all of the academic subjects. So I want to tell you a little bit about what we're doing in the first grade, because I think hearing the particular story of an imaginative inquiry will help it to make even more sense. This year, we've taken on the mantle of expert as children of the forest. And we started this early in the fall, and we are still running with it, still really enjoying it. And I'm going to take you through the steps that we went through to create this imaginative inquiry. And this is kind of where it all began. Those are the kids playing in the outdoor classroom. So these are the steps. We found a question, we followed student interest, we found a narrative, we built a community of experts, and we've evolved with their interests. So the first step is really the most important one. That is to find a meaningful question. It has to be authentic, right? Children will see right through it if it's meaningless. But how to come up with a project that children can take on that will be fun and will be playful and will have meaning for them. This was my first challenge. And often in imaginative inquiry, you use what's called the mantle of the experts, which means that the students become, in the pretend, experts on a topic, and they're commissioned to solve a problem. For example, a class might receive a letter asking them to create a book about our campus, or the Audubon Society might ask them to document the birds, or they might pretend they're the city council to solve a problem in New York City. So what was the meaningful question for us? I decided that the campus itself posed the perfect challenge, because the woods that had been in the center of the campus last year and the years prior had been cleared this year. The woods are gone to make room for the outdoor classrooms, and that's what you see before you, right? That's the outdoor classrooms that used to be brush and trees and stones. So I imagined a problem that first graders could really get into would be the question, where did the creatures who lived there go? Maybe they need help finding new homes. So as I was pondering this question, this could be our inquiry, but I was trying to figure out how to enter into it in a way that would be fun for the students. As I was pondering this, the students showed me the way. Their interest in gnomes was just phenomenal this fall. They were talking about gnomes all the time and spending their free time in the outdoor classroom building gnome houses. They started out, as you can see in that first picture, building their own individual gnome houses, everybody building a gnome house. And then we got our first letter from the gnomes asking us to make them stronger because the cat was knocking them down. And this is how our inquiry began, from a letter from the gnomes. And so then the students got together to build that big gnome house that you see on the right. So that was just the entry into it. So the next thing I needed to figure out was, who were we? We're not the gnomes, right? Because they're building the gnome houses. So I found a story that helped us enter in. This is a beautiful book by an author I love, Elsa Beskow. And in this story, the children of the forest are tiny people who live in the forest with the forest creatures and are friends with them. Have adventures with them, help them find food, help them when they're injured. And the class really enjoyed this book. And this book gave me the entry point that we could be children of the forest. So, and what you see here is we made little hats to match the red and white mushroom hats the children of the forest are wearing. We made our own, and every time we launch into one of our inquiry sessions, we all put that on. That's the signal that we're pretending. And that was one of the fun things about this, is that when it's time to begin, I say 3, 2, 1, action. And then we all get our hats and we put them on. And the students know that we're pretending about the gnomes and about being children of the forest, but they love to do it. And they love this story. So this is how we became the community. This is how we became a community of experts, how we became the experts on the creatures. We became the children of the forest. We could then help them find new homes. We worked with the gnomes, who would write us notes and ask us questions, and we would research and write back. And so one of the first things that happened was that the gnomes wanted to come and meet us. So that was fun. 4 students volunteered. They wanted to be the gnomes. So they learned everything they could about gnomes, while the rest of the class wrote questions about gnomes and how they lived and where they lived and what they were like. So what you see in this picture are students asking questions and sharing their expertise. So from the gnomes, we moved on. And this is the other fun thing about the inquiries. I'm really free to follow the students' interests and their excitement. So we went from being the gnomes and exploring, as you see here, a student enjoying the stream as the children of the forest. We've had a lot of fun building the forts and the stream play and the woods play into our inquiry. And one magical morning, a first grader looked out the window in the classroom and said, "Miss Sally, look at the blue jays outside. There are 7 blue jays." And if any of you have ever seen baby birds, they're so entertaining, so animated, hopping all around, calling to the parents for food. And that's what was happening outside of our window. So the blue jays became the next part of our inquiry. The students, some students similar to the gnomes, volunteered to be the blue jays. They did the research, and the rest of the class wrote questions, and they also made maps. We walked all around the campus looking for food that blue jays could eat, and we made maps of the campus with food. And when the blue jays came, we welcomed them with a snack and maps to show them where they could find more food. So that was, a lot of fun to be able to be open to the moment when it happened. And this takes us to the next part, and the reason I love imaginative inquiry, because we're able to integrate core academic subjects so seamlessly into the imaginative inquiry. So as I was saying about the blue jays, there were acorns on the ground, and it turns out blue jays do eat acorns. So you saw that photo of the students collecting them. What you see here is they started sorting and counting. And so this gave us a chance to apply our math skills to a question we really wanted the answer to. How many acorns had those blue jays eaten? So we found the acorns were in all different states, right? Some of them were just the caps. Some of them were whole intact acorns. Some of them were half eaten. So we sorted them into those groups, and then we counted the acorns in each group, and we did the math and figured out that out of the 1,339 acorns and acorn pieces we found on the ground, that showed us that about 779 acorns had been eaten by the blue jays. And in the process, we learned a lot about blue jays, and we enjoyed applying our math. We've also, as I mentioned a lot, we've been applying our language arts, our writing, creative writing and information books, and in our reading today and many other days, when we find a note, and it's always a surprise, we find a note outside from the gnomes, and the students gather around and are so excited to try to read it and to decode it together. So it's an exciting opportunity to use their growing skills at reading. Our social studies curriculum is embedded into it. Our standards are embedded into it, the sense of place, understanding roles within a community, understanding what it is to share common materials in a healthy way. We're doing research, we're doing interviews, we're making decisions. It's integrated with our science, and it just really energizes the class, and the inquiry moves the learning along naturally and organically, with the students feeling like they're very much in the lead in their own learning. And that brings me to the last slide, which I think really just sums up what I love about imaginative inquiry. It inspires students. It inspires students, and this is important. It inspires them to take the lead in their own learning and to feel empowered by that. Students are inspired because there's a sense of purpose to the work, not just because the teacher said, do this work, but because they're genuinely interested in the subject and they have ownership over it. They have agency. They're co-creators, they're collaborators, they're decision makers. And learning actively in this way is more effective than being a passive recipient of information. Children learn new things in pursuit of the goal with a supportive community of learners. And this collaborative community aspect also sustains their energy. It empowers them, and it helps them to build strong relationship within the community of learners. And this is another thing I've really enjoyed, is seeing the way the students come together, sharing their knowledge and supporting one another. And it gives us a sense of belonging together. When the children feel that they're the children of the forest, they have a sense of belonging to this group. It's not just the first grade, but there's a story that ties them together. And that has made their relationships in the class really positive in a special way. And, you know, I do want to inspire all of you to think about how you might nurture the imagination at home. You know, there are such great benefits to nurturing the imagination and creating opportunities for pretend play at home. And home is, of course, a wonderful place for imaginative play. Keep in mind the value of imaginative play by creating a peaceful play area for your child. Simple toys are best. Choose toys that encourage open-ended play and come without a script. And by that I mean not toys that are based on a television show or a movie or a video game. Let it be something that's sort of a blank slate for the child to project their own ideas and their own dreams onto. And avoid any toys that do the work for the child by making noises or walking or talking. Instead, prefer simple things, props that can be used in many different ways, silks, wooden bowls, stones, very simple dolls, blocks. All of these things will help open up truly imaginative play. And then treat the play with respect. It is, as Maria Montessori said, the work of the child. So try not to interrupt children when they're playing if you can help it. When my children were younger, if I tried to interrupt them when they were playing, they would say, "But Mom, we're in the middle of a good game." And they were. So if your children are in the middle of a pretend, let them play as long as you possibly can. And let them leave their games set up until they're done. I know it's hard. Sometimes we end up tripping over blocks and stuffed animals and wooden vehicles. But if there's an area where they can leave a game set up and come back to it, then that game can really grow and take on more and more with time. You can even create your own imaginative inquiry with your child through stories, really carefully selected toys, and family activities. You may, find that your family is particularly intrigued by the Lenape or by people who lived in New Jersey, the early settlers. And those stories can give you things to do and an approach to pretending that will be very enriching for your children. And another way to build it is to read great books and to tell stories. This really nurtures imaginative play, and it also helps you to share it with your children. Most of us have lost the gift of pretending, as our minds are occupied with adult concerns. But we can enter into that space and pretend with our children by sharing stories. And that can really be a blessing to us and to them, a way to enter into that pretending together. So I'd be happy to take any questions about pretending or imaginative inquiry if you have any.
Well, if not, thank you so much again for joining us this evening. I hope you enjoyed the presentation. Sally, thank you so much. That was really great and informative and fun to see the kids playing as children of the forest. I love to see them playing outside and being all wrapped in their hats and being all wrapped up in the game. And to anyone that hasn't, been to Willow before, if you want to come, please contact us, Lisa Vanderveen. I'll be sure to give her information to you as well when we share the slides and presentation afterwards, so you can come take a visit. And walk around outside and you'll probably see the children of the forest in in the middle of their games when you come play and come visit and see them play. So thanks again, and stay tuned for our next webinar on executive functioning. You can sign up for that the same way as you did this one if you haven't yet, and hope you guys have a good night.